pain and you're going to die. They're going to tell you about COVID-19 that's real, but it's going to be in your house and you're going to be sick and you're never going to get better about it. They're going to tell you about every single thing that's going around, and all it is doom and gloom. There's nothing happy going on in their life. They're lonely in their life. They cannot be happy, and all they want to do is keep pulling you down. They got a series in every place that they go, places that are happy, exciting. Wedding days are exciting. Well, here comes a Debbie Downer. Birthdays are supposed to be exciting. We celebrate life. Well, here comes a Debbie Downer. Thanksgiving is a time to give thanks. Well, here comes Debbie Downer. Disney World is supposed to be a place where dreams come alive, and it's the happiest place on earth. Well, here comes Debbie Downer. Well, I see that they don't have Mickey Mouse. I guess maybe he got feline AIDS, or maybe all right, blah, blah. All they want to do is just keep pulling you down. Debbie Downers. Maybe you know a Debbie Downer in your family or where you work, one of your co-workers. Or maybe they come to your Thanksgiving, or maybe they're one of your neighbors. When I started thinking about this, I was thinking about some Debbie Downers I know in my life. And this is what I try to do when I see them. Turn. And turn. Because they want to bring everyone down. They're not content in their life. They don't want to be. They want to have doom and gloom. That's all they want to spread. Maybe you're one of those who are set in their ways and you do not enjoy learning. Maybe that's why you're discontent. You know what? You're one of those people that says, you know what? I'm stuck in my ways. I've been doing this for a while and I ain't learning nothing new. I just want to stay what I'm doing, even though I like my crazy world because at least I know it's crazy. I'm afraid to venture out in an area that I don't know because it makes me feel awkward. So I'm afraid to go into this area of being content. I don't want to learn anything new. Maybe I'm just lazy, in all honesty. Maybe I'm just lazy and I have no desire or no drive in life. In education, we've got some teachers in the building, by the way. They're going to keep looking and probably glaring at me. But in education, one of our words and our phrases, there's always a phrase every year that we adopt and pick, and it's not really we adopt it, but we throw it in our lingo every year. And that we're lifelong learners. We're going to be lifelong learners. We're going to embrace new. We're going to adapt and change. You ain't heard nobody talk about being a lifelong learner this year with 2020. Because if anything, we've had to adapt and change so much that we're not enjoying this lifelong learning process. We don't enjoy having to teach our children virtually. We don't enjoy having to learn 5 or 6 things, right? We don't want to have to learn how to do math. We've been doing it 20 years this way. We've been teaching social studies this way for 10 years. I don't want to learn anything different. I've been teaching English for 9 years. I don't want to learn anything different. I want to do it the way I've done it because I like it. So I don't want to learn anything new. That whole saying, can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, that saying's not always true. First of all, you can. You can teach an old dog new tricks. The whole saying about the dental hygienist is coming to her patient, they never floss, they never brush, and she's trying to tell them, I really need you to floss and brush your teeth. It's really important that you floss and brush your teeth because, if you don't, you're going to have serious damage. And that person finally says, well, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And the dental hygienist says, you can if you want to have your teeth. You can if you want to keep your teeth. I bet you can teach an old dog new tricks. If you want to keep your teeth, if you want to keep your sanity. How many of you want to keep your sanity? If you want to keep your sanity, maybe it's time an old dog learns a new trick. Because this roller coaster ride that we're on of 2020, I don't like it. I don't want to be on it anymore. And I wonder if Paul, with his craziness, I'm sure he can because he went through a life of content. Here's this roller coaster of 2020, and Paul's just riding it out. Life of content. It's so much easier just to do what comes natural and let your mind do what it naturally does, and that's just gripe and complain. Focus on everything that's bad. Look at the problems, but never be a part of the solution. Focus on everything you don't have and that you want. We begin to covet our neighbor's belongings, and truly this is what we want. This is what Hollywood and marketing want. They want you to see the newest Jordans, and they want you to covet them and want them. That means you got to work that extra 5 hours just to buy them. all that's wrong with this world and all that's wrong with people around you. After all, you are just keeping it real 100%. You're not just complaining, you're just telling it like it is. I'm not trying to complain. I'm not trying to bring you down. I'm just trying to keep it real. That life is hard. People are crazy. Life is bad. My world is... We don't understand what it means to be in content. However, Paul says that, on the other hand, he's learned to be content. So maybe you're ready to learn to be content. Paul says that you can learn. Maybe you're ready to learn to be thankful even when things don't go your way. Even when you're on this roller coaster, you're learning to be content. Perhaps you really do want to give up your habits of being so negative and discontent and ungrateful. It's a daily choice. Today you can make the daily choice to be content and grateful, be thankfully content. It requires consistent reflection and a willingness to learn. So let's look at a life of contentment. So now that we know what content is, point number 2 is let's learn to be content no matter what's put on our plate. Let's learn to be content no matter what's put on our plate. Look at verse 12. Look at verse 12. Paul says this. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned that the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. Anyone ever ate Veg-All? I can't stand it. And I had a parent, my father, that he was one of those, if it's on your plate, you need to eat it. You need to clear your plate kind of deal. And I hated Veg-All. I couldn't stand it. I loved vegetables. I loved from the garden. We had a garden. We had beans and okra and tomatoes and potatoes and peas and corn. You name it, we grew it, we had it. But there was something about that taste from Veg-All from a can that I couldn't stand. But my dad was one of those, if it's on your plate, you're going to eat it. So how can you be content with no matter what's on your plate? When I think of this, I can't help but think about some of our missionaries who share stories of from what I can only gather to be something like the old show called Fear Factor, where they have to sit down and eat boiled spiders, and they're like crispy spiders, or they have to go and eat half-eaten duck eggs, and then they have to go and maybe they drink that kombucha juice, and it's where they chew on this plant and they spit in this jug and they let it ferment. And then they give it to everyone that visits them because it's a gesture of hospitality, and it's an insult if you don't drink it. I'm so glad that that's not what I have to do at Revive Church, is drink the kombucha juice, and we're not all chewing on it and spitting it. I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. So how can you be content with whatever's put on your plate? How can you be content with whatever's on your plate? How do you do that? How are you able to be content with what's on your plate when you look over and you see your friend? Here you are eating some spider legs and some kombucha, and you look over and there's your friend and they're eating some KFC and a sweet tea. How can you be content with what's on your plate when your friend's got KFC? How does that work? How do you live a life of contentment when you've been diagnosed with the disease, you're seriously sick, but you look over and you see your friends are healthy as a horse and they're living their best life? How do you live a life of content when you're served up a dish of loneliness and all the while you look and you see your siblings and your friends, they're living their best life with their spouses and their children? How do you live a life of content? Your entire plate, your entire meal could be piled up with a lot of unpleasant entrees that you'd really rather not have. But they won't disappear. And as bad as you want to get rid of it, there's no dog underneath the table for you to give your Veg-All to. So what are you going to do with all that's on your plate? What are you going to do with this that's on your plate when life serves you up loneliness? When life serves you up this disease, when life serves you up the death of a loved one, when life serves you up a family member or yourself having these hurt habits or hang-ups, what are you going to do when life serves this up to you? The question is not whether or not you will take what you get. Just take what you get. The question is, how will you take what you get? How are you going to take it? It's not a question of just you get what you get. No, that's not the question. It's how are you going to take what you get? Here's this veg, y'all. You hate it. But that's what's put on the table so you don't have to starve. And you're thankful for that. Here's Sunday when everyone else is eating and going out with their families and eating, but your family's eating popcorn because you're poor. You're thankful to have something in your stomach and you eat it because you're content with that. When everyone else is going on, they're planning their trip to the Christmas in Dollywood and the Gatlinburg Mountains, and they're going on the ski slopes, but you're planning on working a double shift and you hope to be off for Christmas Eve so you can be there with your children. You're thankful that you were able to put food on the table and a roof over your child's head and that they're healthy and that they're not sick and dying. The question again is not whether or not you'll just take it. The question is, how will you take it? Paul explains that if you want to discover the secret of Thanksgiving, you have to learn to be content with whatever's put on your plate. So how do you do that? He says it comes down to a choice. And Paul simply puts it this way. I'm not going to let my external circumstances affect my internal attitude. I'm not going to let what's going on around me, this roller coaster of 2020, this roller coaster of COVID-19, this roller coaster, this pandemic, I'm not going to let these external circumstances affect my internal attitude. I'm not going to let what happens to me rob me of my happiness. That's how I'm going to live a life of gratitude. I'm going to go back to verse 12 one more time. He says, I know how to be brought low, and I know how to be abound. In any and every circumstance, I've learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I'm sure as a Pharisee, I want you to think about that verse as I read these passages. As a Pharisee, he'd been respected and feared by many, but as a Christian, his own people saw him as a traitor, a heretic, and a loser. I'm sure he understood discouragement and disappointment as things did not always go as he planned, considering he spent several years of his life in prison or jail for simply telling people about a man named Jesus. Look at 2 Corinthians 11, 24 through 27. 2 Corinthians 11, 24 through 27. He says this. This is Paul. 5 times I received at the hands of the Jews the 40 lashes less one. So I've been beat, but I'm content with life. Keep going to 25. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. A night and a day I was adrift at sea. But yet in all circumstances I'm saying rejoice. I'm content because what's outside does not control my internal happiness. On frequent journeys and dangers from rivers, dangers from robbers, dangers from my own people, danger from Gentiles, danger in the city, danger in the wilderness, danger at sea, danger from false brothers, in toil and hardships, through many a sleepless night, in hunger and thirst, often without food, in cold and exposure. Paul says, I have learned to be content. He gives us a small insight of the stuff that Paul has gone through. Here's a man who knows what it is to hurt, to suffer, to feast on a table full of food, and to listen as his stomach growls with hunger. He knows what it's like to wear the nice, clean clothes and be a respected rabbi, and he also knows what it's like to walk in rags with the wind chilling you to the bone. Paul didn't waste his experiences of hunger and need. He made the most of the choices that he was at and the places he was at. Contentment did not matter to him no matter what he had or did not have. He was content. Yet when we look at all the stuff that he endured, when we looked at all the stuff that Paul endured, he says in Philippians 4 through 8. Look what he says again. Same chapter that our message comes from today. He says again, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. Let your reasonableness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with what? Thanksgiving. Let your requests be known to God. And I want you to hear this. And the peace of God, which passes all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds. Keep it on that, your minds in Christ Jesus. The peace of God. What did we say content was? A form of peace. that no matter what goes on your way, you have peace. It's a satisfaction. Let the peace of God surpass everything, and it will guard your hearts. Chase shared a message last week and how truly we are blessed as a nation. It should be so easy for us to be thankful as we get ready to sit around the table full of turkeys and dressings. We're getting ready to go into a warm house. There might be a fire going on, a crackling of the fire. There's men and women sitting together, able to eat, to talk, to converse, having clothes and shoes on our feet. But yet many of us will count all those as blessings, but still not be content and still not be truly thankful. Friend, you can let your outward circumstances dictate whether or not you are grateful, or you can do what Paul did and choose to be happy inside no matter what happens on the outside. No matter what was put on his plate, no matter what came his way, Paul learned to be content. Paul learned to be content. We shared 2 weeks ago how the writer of the song, "It Is Well With My Soul," did not allow the outward storms of his life to take away his inner thanksgiving and contentment. Chase shared last week the passage in Luke 17 that discussed the 10 lepers, how the 10 left and one stopped and realized that he was healed and turned back and was grateful and praised God for his healing that he had. Living a life of gratitude, being appreciative of the things in our life. I'm getting ready to close if the praise and worship team wants to get ready. There was a missionary that shared a story about how he went to Tobago off the South American coastlines, and on that trip he saw up close how leprosy had destroyed the bodies of lives and the people. And the final day, they're getting ready to leave, and he was selected to lead their group in worship. And he asked the people, "Is there anyone that has a song they'd like for us to sing? Is there any request today?" And he looks, and there's this woman whose face is probably the most disfigured he's ever seen. Her nose is eaten up with leprosy. Her mouth is eaten up with leprosy. She's lost fingers, digits in her hands, and she waves and she says, "Can we sing Count Your Many Blessings?" Can you sing what? Your nose is eaten with leprosy. Your mouth is corroded with leprosy. You've lost digits in your hand. Your face and body is disfigured, and you want us to sing Count Your Many Blessings? How is that possible? I dare say this probably because this woman has learned to be content in this life of a roller coaster. She is thankfully content that she has her health, she has breath, but more importantly of all that, she has a relationship with her Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And she is content with that. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. To take our last breath here on earth is to take our first breath in eternity. That's what the Bible clearly says. To take our last breath on earth is to take our first breath of eternity. And she wants to sing Count Your Blessings. The missionary said he sang that song, but tears filled his eyes. He wasn't able to finish it. And he said, "I'll never sing that song again without thinking of this woman." My last point is this. Be content, just like this woman, in knowing that Christ is enough. Christ is everything. He is the appetizer. He is the salad. He is the main